Tennessee beats Alabama 24-17 in Nashville. It was an ugly game. They come out with the win, of course. Tennessee's defense does what we expect their defense to do, and we see that offense heat up. If Nico's hitting more throws, I think this one could have been a lot uglier. We know they had some missed kicks as well, but I'll always start with you, bro. Give me some of your takeaways in this ugly but great football game to watch.
Well, if you ask me from what I saw, the game didn't really start getting going till about the third quarter. That's when it really started to get juicy and good,
Yep.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
Bama, being the only one to score in the first half, and I think it was early on in the second quarter, I believe,
Yeah.
Jalen Milroe throws for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his effort was a bit concerning this week. I gotta say, I think he threw a pick or two.
Yeah.
Um, but after that, it looked like
Couple picks look very ugly.
Tennessee made the adjustments they needed to make. Nico struggled early on, as we saw. But
Mm-hmm.
once Heupel kind of switched lanes and was like, okay, let's shift the momentum a little bit. Let's start feeding Dylan Sampson the ball. Um,
Right.
and that started working for them. We saw that. I kind of think they need to be a run first team in my mind. Which, like I said, Nico made great throws when he needed to make when it really mattered, when it really
Yeah.
counted.
Yeah.
Um, but Samson, 26 carries, 2 touchdowns, end of story.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what wins the game. Um, Alabama is becoming sort of a one-trick pony, so to speak. Jalen
Yeah.
Milroe, outside of Jam Miller and Kendrick Law, I mean, where are they at? You
Mm-hmm.
know, the defense wasn't playing as well as they needed to be. You know, I think Bama needs to start hitting that panic button just a little bit because look who else they got on the schedule,
Oh, yeah.
teams that aren't going to roll over for them. So
Right.
it's going to be
Yep.
interesting. But yeah, those are my takeaways. I think, Tennessee earned that victory. They weren't necessarily the better ball team, but they got it done.
Yeah. Tennessee definitely earned that victory. They deserved it. And I'll even go on the counterpart, man. I had Alabama winning this, coming in. I just felt like, I almost said Saban, but I know we're out of the Saban era. It just felt like Kalen DeBoer had that edge over Josh Heupel. Alabama had been tested a little more this
Mm-hmm.
year than Tennessee had. And we even saw that when Tennessee got into that SEC play, that was my biggest concern is that, number one scoring offense in the nation that we saw putting up 69, 71 points the first few weeks. That was great, but that's what they were supposed to do. And once we saw them step into that SEC play, we see the offense kind of fall apart. Nico disappears. The defense still holding their end, which is what's really kept them around this season. And I'm not going to bag on Tennessee at all because this is a great
Right.
win. This is how you adjust in the middle of the season. This is how you get better as a ball club without question. And talking about that Tennessee defense, they stifled Alabama. They kept an eye on Jalen Milroe, who really was a non-factor in this game. We see him struggle with the ugly end zone interception. And it was just very remarkable to know that Tennessee's defense in the biggest game of the year for them actually stood up. And you even see, in the first quarter, Bama dominated time of possession 11-4. So I was like, okay,
Yep.
this might be one of those games where Tennessee just really gets kind of grinded out here. But we knew that Alabama wasn't necessarily the most effective at running the football. Yes, they have Milroe. Yes, they have Jam Miller as well. But when you can get their guys out in space, maybe kind of some of those broken plays, and we've seen the bag of explosive plays that Kalen DeBoer
Mm-hmm.
has, in his at his repertoire rather. Bama's defense making that statement early on though, the strip of Dylan Sampson, which I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
that is going to be kind of a trademark of this game. We see it 3 minutes in, the game's already rocking, getting through the first quarter. Bama does everything on a couple of critical third downs, and just as you're getting through the first few minutes of this game, you're like, yeah, this is going to be one of those games where it's just everything is going to be earned. You're going to have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be gritty. Now, you could still see those secondary gaps on the backside of Alabama, which has been a problem all along. We talked about it big time coming into the
Oh
Georgia
yeah.
game, and we see that Georgia exposed it in teams week over week. Vanderbilt, obviously South Carolina as well, who arguably should have won that football game. Tennessee was attacking it though. Tennessee was attacking those gaps, and
Mm-hmm.
to see Nico miss those throws, he had 2 touchdowns early on that he overthrew, which really could have broke this
Yep.
game open for Tennessee. Like I
Absolutely.
said, Tennessee missed a couple field goals. Tennessee could have won this game. I'm not going to give a score prediction because it's kind of easy to do that hindsight coaching, but the points they left on the board, they left a 40-plus piece on the board in Nashville.
I
They
agree.
not leaving 40 points on the board, they could have walked out of that game with 40 plus points. They win with 27, or excuse me, they win with 24. You hit those 2 field goals, you're at 30. You get at least one of those touchdowns, you're at 36, 37, and then obviously if you hit another one, you're in the mid 40s
Right.
there. To know that that could have went that way, I was like, yeah, it could have
Mhm.
been ugly for Alabama. We're having a potential different conversation about Alabama, saying that the armor's finally cracked. They fought a number 15. It definitely could have been even worse. Glad Nico's okay. We did see
Yeah,
him go down with a little bit of an injury
absolutely.
scare in this one. We see the awful throw from the fifth year
Thank
quarterback
God.
or come in, throws that ugly pick. But that was a tough spot. You put him in on 3rd and 9, biggest game of the year. The guy did definitely what he could. And even as the second quarter, first half is finishing it out, just Bama and Tennessee exchanging ugly, awful drives. I mean, if it wasn't Jalen Milrow with intentional grounding and Bama not knowing the play
Penalties
clock a couple of
everywhere.
times, penalties everywhere in this game. You had Nico throw
Yeah.
a horrible interception into double coverage when he should have thrown it away. We'll definitely get to those penalties here in a second because that was massive. We saw it was the first time under Josh Heupel that Tennessee had 3 first half turnovers, and it was against an average Alabama defense up until
Oh,
Alabama.
yeah.
They're kind of stepping up in the first half of this game, and then in the second half, outscored 17-7. So we see it bend
Mhm.
and then finally break there. But Alabama only puts up 7 points with 3 first half turnovers. 3 first half turnovers from Tennessee. So being able
Right.
to capitalize on that more, knowing that Alabama's going to have their work cut out for them later in the year, those are critical moments that they're going to have to get on top of. 3 straight first half shutouts for Tennessee for the first time since 63. And of course, we see it going on throughout this season as well. 10 penalties in the first half for the first time for Alabama in
Mhm.
20 years. 20 was it 25? I want to be that doesn't feel accurate. No, 26. Let me get it right.
26 years, yeah.
26 assessed penalties in this
Mhm.
game for
1998.
210 yards. It was crazy to see. Obviously we know the pedigree of Alabama and Nick Saban. It's not necessarily there anymore, but there still are some effects of it. And of course, when you see performances like this, multiple penalties, you have 15 penalties from Alabama, you just cannot win a ball game like that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn my air up real quick.
Ironically, man, now that you mentioned that 26 years, it's funny that you say that because Tennessee won the national championship 26 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny,
Yeah. Yeah. And
but
26 assessed penalties totally in this game. It was just wild. I mean, no discipline from either side, and you feel
no,
more shocked to see it from Bama than you do from Tennessee. But as the half is finishing out, neither team was running the ball well. You have a
no.
defensive battle with the chance for Tennessee to be winning, but the overthrows from Nico obviously stall that out. And then the running game wakes up for both teams. Bama's running the ball well. Tennessee's running the ball well. 6 rushes and 1 pass on the touchdown drive for Tennessee. Of course, Dylan Sampson coming in, couple of touchdowns in this game, 3 touchdowns in the overtime win against Florida last week as well. You see Bama come out on a drive with 7 straight runs in this one. And,
Yep.
once you saw Bama go up 10-7, you kind of started feeling that sting of Tennessee missing those couple of field goals.
Oh,
Obviously,
yeah.
Alabama missed all of one also. But then finally, after 3 quarters, it took, not Nika. Nico was kind of transitioning in between words there. Nico took all of 3 quarters to hit a deep route on Bama secondary. They punished them with Dylan Sampson. He obviously makes up for the fumble early on with the 2 touchdowns. Big strip from Alabama early on in the game. I was very shocked to see, like, okay, that's how Alabama's defense is going to come out in this one. And it was just really a battle of who can run the ball better in the second half. No deep
Yep.
shots from Jalen Milrow, too. You were able to tell, okay, Alabama respects his Tennessee secondary, and Milrow struggled with that defense, 2 turnovers as well.
Right.
Chime in here, Alan, if you might think so. It kind of felt like I was watching Georgia and Alabama with all the deep shots from Tennessee, no catches from most of
I
them. I'm
felt
just
the
like,
same way.
they're cracking them on the back end
Right.
in the
It
secondary. Go ahead.
it it felt like a parody of the UGA game. It really did
Yep.
to an
Yep.
extent. Yeah,
Yep.
and heck, UGA Texas felt almost kinda like that too, in a way,
Right.
with Texas being on the receiving end of that.
Right.
But, not to get into that too soon, but yeah, I think Tennessee put the pressure on them. Knew that they had weaknesses in the secondary, and, they just kept attacking you had said.
Yep. 100%. Sorry, I was turning up my air. I didn't know it
No,
was going
you're
to make the
good.
jerseys behind me kind of go crazy. But yeah, no, totally agree with you. Tennessee's pressure bothered Alabama all night long. And that was
Oh
very clear.
yeah.
You got to shout out Tennessee for making Jalen Milroe a non factor, pressuring him, getting in that backfield.
Yep.
Didn't feel like he had any quarterback runs that really broke off, at
That's
this
why.
point in the game to really take it over. Once Tennessee started establishing the run with Dylan Sampson, then they continued being consistent. They didn't go away from those big pass attempts, which is what's
Mm-mm.
very vital. It's like I said when Georgia played Bama. You don't stop drawing up big pass plays when you're down 30-7. You
No,
expect your personnel to hit those plays because those are going to be the plays
I guess
that dig
that
you
gets you
out.
where you need to be.
Exactly. Obviously, Georgia got in front there for a little bit. We know what happens with Ryan Williams. Georgia's just not able to
Oh yeah.
tackle in that
Freak
game.
play.
But yeah, exactly. Tennessee hitting on 2 big throws in this game, even though, like I said, it wasn't a lot. They stayed faithful with it. They started running Dylan Sampson downhill. This needs to be Tennessee's game plan because they're going to
Absolutely.
be in more games later on in the year that are going to require this type of game plan against
UGA.
Kentucky. Exactly. Against UGA. They have to play Vanderbilt to finish out the year. I know it's going to change a lot over the last 5 weeks of college football, but that has to be their game plan going forward. I know you're probably a little confused, and then we'll get on to Georgia and Texas in the final 2 minutes of this game, maybe as anybody. So there was a penalty. It was 4th and 7, penalty on Alabama. I think it was unsportsmanlike conduct. Pops it back to 4th and 22. I want your take on Kalen DeBoer going against the analytics, despite being pissed about it in the past,
Yep.
and really attempting a 4th and 22 in Nashville in this game.
Gutsy call. I mean, what else can you say? 4th and 22, and you're going for it. Whatever.
Yeah. When I saw it, man, I can't lie. I don't call coaches stupid or not wise because I don't like talking about any human like that, but especially when we get on here, the platform that we have, talking about these guys, this is their career. Like,
I
yes, they don't
questioned it.
necessarily listen to us, but we don't want to be like that towards these guys that we're talking about here
No,
on the show. I'm right there
they're,
with you. I
they're
questioned it as well.
professionals. We're not.
Exactly. I just thought it was an insanely stupid situational play. Analytics are against you. Again, you felt pissed off earlier in the year not going with analytics. You're inside your own 20. I'll just tell you, Alan, that showed Kalen DeBoer did not trust his defense at that point.
Yeah,
His
absolutely.
defense was not trusted at that point because
Nope.
Dylan Sampson, he was hammering him, dude. He was coming downhill. Hands were on the hips of the Alabama defense. You could tell they were tired. They were getting outmanned. They were getting out physical. And like I said, it was an ugly game to see, but Tennessee at the end of it, they're the better team. They come away with the win as well. First time Bama has 2 losses going into November since 2007. Like we said, man, you can't win a game with 15 penalties and 2 turnovers, even though they did
Ooh.
win the turnover battle as well. There was one more point here. Oh, so
Tennessee
more.
had better third down conversion, didn't they? I'm pretty sure.
Yes. I want to say
Yeah,
that they did. I'm
that
actually
wins
about
football
to.
games too.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime that you can do better on third down than the other team. Yep, 6 for 14 for Tennessee, 3 for 14 for Bama. Bama was 1 for 2 on 4th down as well. And both of these teams were tired, man. I mean, they were. Both of these guys, 79
Absolutely.
plays for Bama, 71 plays for Tennessee as well. But, just one quick thing here before we get into Georgia, Texas. We now have another incident of Kalen DeBoer not only cracking under the pressure, which I'm still rooting for the guy because he's been a winner everywhere and there's going to be an
Right.
adjustment period, but
It's the
also
SEC.
the lack of discipline now coming back out. You
Yep.
have players shooting fake jump shots in the middle of a quarterback sneak that's being ran by y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Malachi Moore incident, 15 penalties. I mean, it is concerning. I'll continue to be a Kalen DeBoer fan. I'll continue to give criticism where it's due. Obviously, praise as well. But it's getting questionable. It's getting very questionable. You even said yourself, panic meter for Alabama. Kind of thought so. Thought so after the last game that they played, and obviously the last few games that they've played as well.
Yep.
But yeah, Kalen DeBoer is, it's kind of just a slow deterioration of that culture here. And I'm not going to say that in 7 or 8 games, Alabama's, complete culture is thrown out of the window, but
No.
it is incremental. It does happen in
Yes.
layers. It does happen in steps. And in a game like football, it's not going to
Jab
all
after
just come
jab.
to a head. Yep. It literally jab after jab. And it's not going to necessarily come to a head as quick as some people would like it to be. Go ahead. You got some
I
final
want.
words?
Yeah. So, advice for Bama: make adjustments now because I'm going to tell you, Mizzou's not going to roll over for you.
Nope.
Neither is LSU. Neither is
Nope.
Oklahoma. We know what all three of those teams are about.
And they
And
got to
then
play Auburn to finish the
lastly,
year.
Auburn, the Iron
Yep.
Bowl. Anything
Mhm.
happens in that game, we know.
Yep.
Tiger fans don't care if it's the only game they win.
Yep.
That's Caleb DeBoer's first Iron Bowl.
Yep.
So eh,
Damn, I didn't even think about it like that, bro. But you are 100% correct.
it's gonna be crazy.
Yep.
I'm not saying Auburn's gonna win. I'm not saying that at all because Auburn's struggling this year, as we know. But
Right.
you know that loss to Vanderbilt, that showed us that hey, you know, they're not the Bama of long ago. They're trying to learn who they are, get their
Yep.
identity as a team. Just make the adjustments now, especially with
Yep.
Jalen Milrow,
Oh yeah. Jalen Milrow kind of starting to show us those things that we saw last year, a
and
little bit
improve
as
the
well.
secondary.
Right. Yeah. The secondary is 100%
That's
the biggest
that's a
problem.
target.
They got 5 games left on the schedule. Alabama takes on Missouri at home. So, excuse me, Alabama's at home hosting Missouri. Alabama's on the road against LSU. Their bye week's coming up after the Mizzou game, looks like.
Ooh, Death
Alabama's
Valley.
at home against Mercer. Alabama's on the road against Oklahoma. And then Alabama's at home against Auburn. So I would say outside of the Mercer game, and of course the Oklahoma game as well, just because Oklahoma is completely broken, 3 out of the last 5 games, Alabama's going to be tested. With
Yep.
the way Alabama played over the last few weeks, they could very well be on a 4-game losing streak.
Very
The
well.
way they
They
played
played
against Georgia,
yep,
Vanderbilt beats them outright. If South Carolina hits a throw on the 2-point conversion, that's an L. And now they finally meet their match with Tennessee.
because UGA should have won that game, but they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
That's literally how it went for me
Yep.
because they
Yeah.
Alabama won that first half, but
Yeah.
after that is all dogs.